chatter about the home buying world right now. I think our goal is to make that a little bit less scary for everyone. When everyone's panicking, there's typically ways to take advantage of that. So these guys are filled with the knowledge on how to do that on the money side, and our team backs that up with how to do that on the negotiation side through the sales process. So even if you don't think that you're quite ready to be in the market to purchase, it's never a bad idea to start to consider it, understand where you're at financially, which they'll do a great job of, and then just position yourself to act like a shark and capitalize when everyone's scared. So pass that off to Jeremy Durkin of the Cross Country Mortgage team, Danny McDade, and his team is here as well.
Oh, do you want me to?
Yeah,
I
that'd be
can.
great.
Of course.
Teamwork.
I guess
Still
I'm sorry.
you. Yeah, this is still you.
Hello again. But no, again, we have over the last 10 years created a group of very entrepreneurial spirits who are diligent in working for you as the client with your best interests in mind. So introduce my team. We have Ed Ellenberg.
Hey, what's up?
Nicole Robinson, Steve Chapko's in the back, and Dean. So if anyone's around having a drink or whatever, want to ask anyone questions, great resource. We love Philadelphia. We're all residents of Philadelphia. I just moved out. It's sad. It's a touchy topic. But we know the city in and out. We know all of the neighborhoods, the surrounding counties. So we are here to be a resource for you if you do decide to make that jump into entertaining this idea of purchasing a home. Why buy a home? I mean, there's many reasons, quote unquote, the American dream, right? But no, I mean, just having that pride of ownership, there's nothing cooler than walking into a space and customizing it, making it what you want. However, you want to set it up, it's yours. You don't have to worry about the burden of a landlord or anything like that. Building equity is the biggest thing. I mean, owning a home will allow you to create wealth that many other avenues won't do. It's the easiest way. You're always paying for a house, no matter if you're renting, if you're bumming off a friend. So just paying down your equity, building that kind of wealth within yourself, you become very bankable in the eyes of these guys. So you can really take that to a new level. Borrow against that, build rental portfolios. There's a lot of things you can do, and that just all boils into increasing your assets as a human being. I'm gonna skip this and let these guys dive into the pre-approval process a bit more, and then we'll circle back on just kind of the life cycle of, hey, I love this house, I want to make an offer on this house, to signing paperwork to close. I think this is the most important.
We'll jump in.
Part to start.
Yeah, and so my name is Jeremy Durkin with Cross Country Mortgage. We're a local Philadelphia lender. We primarily just do Philadelphia, a little bit of Jersey, a little bit in the suburbs. Dan's with my group and Ed's with my group, so we're just going to talk to you guys today about really the most important part of the process for you is once you find the house, or even before you find the house, is the financing. So you're buying, and most likely, if not 100% of the time, as a first-time home buyer, you're financing the purchase. So the questions along those lines are rates, payments, closing costs. What do I need to spend out of pocket? So we're going to cover all that today for you, what programs are available, some misconceptions in the market. A hot topic right now is interest rates. They're super high. Is it smart to buy right now? That's really one of the main questions to think about. Rent versus own. Is it cheaper to own or is it cheaper to buy? The qualification process, the credit score makeup is very important. So there's three aspects to qualifying for a mortgage. There's your credit, income, and assets. We're going to go through all those things today. Rent versus buy. Cassandra, you go to the next slide.
Yep.
So rents have been rising a lot. With rents rising, it's still cheaper in a lot of scenarios to buy a house where your mortgage payment is going to be cheaper than renting. Tax benefits, you know, on a $300,000 house, you're going to get a Schedule A deduction, mortgage interest deduction on buying the house, which is going to get you a refund on that property. Let's say we're refinanced about $290,000, $4,000 to $5,000 a year with your mortgage deduction tax.
That's the write-off.
That's the write-off, and that's cash in your pocket at the end of the year. So that's a true That's a true benefit. It's it's great. You're going to build equity, as Alex was talking about. Over time, you're going to pay your mortgage down. You're going to build equity. The house is going to go up in value. There's a couple common, fundamental things that you can always rely on. Appreciation is one of them. And like myself, I'm an investor and in a bunch of investment properties. You know, keep that house as a rental property. Cassandra, just go back real quick.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right.
Passive income's the best income.
Yep. Private home ownership. You know, paint the walls. Do whatever you want with it. You're not dealing with the landlord anymore. You are the landlord. So a lot of benefits to buying. And you know, if you keep it as a rental, eventually, then you have somebody paying off your mortgage for you and building your wealth for you. Next slide. So, as we were just talking about, there is a few aspects to qualifying for a mortgage. Credit scores, the higher your credit scores are, the lower interest rate you're going to get, the less you have to put down, the lower your payment's going to be, the lower your closing costs are going to be.
Should you worry if you have a low credit score? Is there ways
There's
around?
a lot of good options.
Great question.
Yep. And there's a lot of good options if you don't have the best credit score.
That'll be on the next slide.
Yep, that'll be the next slide. Yeah.
I reviewed this.
The cash out of pocket. A lot of misconceptions here. We'll get into that. And the debt to income ratio. What are the banks looking at to qualify you? They're looking at your debt versus your income. How much you make on a monthly basis? Can you repay this loan back, basically? So what makes up the credit score? So I'll have a lot of conversations with buyers, and there's a specific algorithm to credit score makeup. And a lot of times buyers think that they're going to do the right thing, and you know, they have a lot of great ideas, and they're not usually right about that. You really need to talk to somebody like myself, Dan, Ed, on what you should do to get your credit scores up to where they need to be to get the best rate, or just to qualify for the loan in general. Running credit is no cost. It's free, and we can. Part of our job is a credit coaching job as well. So
It doesn't hurt your credit, just to get the conversation
it
started.
doesn't hurt your credit. One credit inquiry isn't really going to hurt your credit. It's when you're running it multiple times in a short period of time. So 4, 5, 6 credit checks within 30 days, then your scores will start to go down. Doing one free credit check, it's a great idea.
What if I
Sure.
have no credit? I want to buy a house. Is that
If you
obtainable?
have no credit, it's only obtainable if you're new to the United States and you had credit in a different country.
Sure. What about the Credit Karma stuff? FreeCreditReport.com.
That was my question.
Yeah.
Good.
This might be stupid, but I have one of those like free accounts
Yep.
where it checks your credit for you, and then it emails me weekly and tells me my
Yeah.
credit.
Yep.
And I click on it every time and see my new credit score that only changes like 1 point or so. Does that do anything if every time I refresh it?
It's not a credit inquiry.
Oh, okay.
So unless you give a lender or a car dealership or a credit card company your social security number and authorized to run credit,
So
then
the
you're
free
not getting
credit
an
things
inquiry.
are fine to
It's fine.
So
use and they're legit?
they are. I don't want to say they're always completely accurate.
Never.
Okay.
But it's
They're not
but it
accurate.
is a very good way to just kind of keep an eye on what's going on. You know, if you have a red flag like a new inquiry or something, it's going to ping on one of those.
Yep.
But you don't want to rely on that for your true credit report. And then just jumping in a bit further with I think it's important also to make sure you hire a pro like the Durkin team who knows the transactions in and out. That way, you know, you're not going to Joe Schmo, the lender, who promises you the world. You know, now you're 3 weeks down the line, you're scrambling, and you have to take another hard credit inquiry. So important to vet your staff, call it. And again, I think the track record speaks for
And
itself.
I remember, those sites are free for a reason,
Yeah.
right? And it's there for a gauge. They're good. He was just saying that for the inquiries, making sure no one's getting into your credit, right? Making sure no one's hacking your credit, that's good. But again, when you go for either a car or a mortgage, that's when like you'll really know what your scores are, what's really going on. Good.
And what goes into those, who the hell knows?
Right.
Because they all can, Cars, I think, vary from then
Go back real quick.
mortgages.
Yeah.
Let's pick it up for you guys. So, the one thing I will say about those is you can rely on them being consistently wrong, but they're about 30 to 50 points higher than what your actual credit scores at banks can pull. So it's actually not a bad gauge. It's just if you're seeing 780, we're going to pull 730, 740. If you're seeing 690, we're going to pull 640, 650. So it's actually not bad as long as you know that.
Yeah.
To be honest. So your credit score makeup is a few things. So we've already talked about new credit, type of credit used. That's going to be revolving versus installment. And so revolving is credit cards, line of credits. Installment is a fixed note loan, a car loan, a mortgage is an installment loan. The length of the credit history. So if you just start getting credit, you're never going to get above 740, let's say. So if you want to have that perfect credit score, you need to have a couple years, making your payments on time, and that's really where you get your scores up to the highest echelon. The amount owed is huge. So if you have this is really the biggest takeaway from this slide is if you have a credit card that has $1,000 limit, and that's maxed, if you run that up to $950 every month, the credit utilization is typically what gets reported to the credit bureaus, and it doesn't matter if you pay it off every month. The balance on your credit card statement each month is what shows as the utilization, which is the amount owed, and that can keep your scores down below 700 a lot. So if you want to maximize your credit scores, especially when you're about to buy a house or to get a car, you want to keep your utilization of your credit card at 30% or less. So $1,000 month credit card, you want to keep your balance at $300 or less. At no point during that month, leading up to those months, do you want to run that credit card up to higher than 30%.
Here's a trick with that too. So let's just say you have a Capital One card, right? Every creditor reports to the credit bureau different dates of the month. So my best advice would be go home. If you have something like this going on, you look at your statement. Let's just say October 10th is when your statement ends, right? Basically 3 days before that statement ends, so October 7th, that's when the credit bureau is checking with the creditors. So make it a goal to where 3 days before October 10th, whatever your due date is, to make sure that your credit card is paid down to whatever that is. Because that credit bureau comes in and they're reporting that
The
balance.
lower balance.
Versus waiting to that due date, that exact due date to pay. That's also helps your credit as well.
And then the payment history is very important too. So, do you paid on time? But the secret is, I mean, you can be 29 days late on any account. It doesn't report late to the credit bureaus until you're 30 days later. So you might have a late fee if you're 15 days late or more. But if you're paying it, it's due on the first, you're paying on the first, second, third, fourth, 15th, 25th, whatever, you're still current in the eyes of the credit report. So this is a pretty good template slide. So a 740 credit score will get you a lower rate than a 680 to 739. And then below 680, if you're below 680, your loan options went from, let's say, 6 to 2, for example. But there's still plenty of loan options there. And there's even loan options between 639. We go down to a 550 credit score. So you can have a 550 credit score and still buy a house with 96.5% financing today.
And what's it? I mean, to move into a new apartment in Philadelphia, it's
First,
typically
last security.
first month, last month, and 1 month security deposit.
Yeah.
Which, when you're breaking it down, is a substantial amount of cash. In a bit, we'll talk about ways through the negotiation process about how to keep more cash in your pocket. And I think when you boil it all down, with grants and whatnot out there, you can often get into a house. I've closed homes on people where they showed up to the closing table and they walked out with a check
Yeah.
that they
Easy with
deposited into their bank account for buying a home. So
Yep.
you can get creative.
We'll go over that in just a second too. Oh, that's actually the next slide. Okay.
Oh my God.
Look at that.
So basically, there's for first-time home buyers like yourself. God bless you if you're buying a jumbo house, but most likely 9.5 to 10 times, we're getting a conventional or
That's a big
FHA
house,
loan.
the jumbo.
Yeah, we're getting a conventional or FHA loan, and beyond some misconception out there, I don't know if people really think that today. You don't need 20% down. Conventional loan, you can put 3% down, and the current loan limit just went up to $715. You need to have a couple months reserves in the bank after closing. It's really not that.
So what are reserves?
Reserves are, if your mortgage payment's $2,000 a month, you need to have 2 months of mortgage payments after closing set aside. Bank likes to see that.
Cash?
If you
Cash inside?
yeah. If you lost your job or something came up or there was an unexpected expense at the house,
And they want to see that in the bank,
They
not
wanna
like
see
in
that.
a 401.
Nope.
it can
Got
be
it.
in a 401k sometimes.
Okay.
It's just they're very lenient. Once Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FHA all got involved, the government really began pushed for housing, and that's why we've seen appreciation, in housing become so affordable.
The higher the credit, the more lenient.
FHA, you don't need any reserves, 3.5% down, and then jumbo loans are when the loan amount currently is over $715,000. It's called a jumbo loan.
So is that like a bigger house or something?
Yeah,
Bigger house, yeah.
Purchase.
Or
It's the size of
depending
the
on
loan.
the area you're in, sometimes it might not be, but it might be more expensive. So
Think $1 million. Think like $750,000.
Does that mean the house costs 750?
Okay.
That's the loan amount.
What if the house costs more than that? Then you need to have the rest in cash to be able
to do a
have-
conventional loan, yeah,
Okay.
right. So if you like a lot of times, let's say somebody's buying an $800,000 house and they're putting 10% down, they're basically in the conventional
You're still- okay.
area because the loan amount is $715,
Okay.
right? All right. So what does it cost to buy a house? This is really the most important thing. This is what you care about the most. You care about what you're spending out of pocket and what's your housing payment. That's really it. When we're talking to buyers, it boils down to those two things. So to simplify it, the last slide we were talking about the down payment. Your total out of pocket to buy a house is two things: the down payment plus the closing costs. So conventional 3% down, FHA is 3.5% down. If you can put more down, that's great. So the closing costs are very expensive in Philadelphia. One of the most expensive areas for closing costs because of the Philadelphia transfer tax.
Boo.
But the real estate taxes are cheaper in Philadelphia,
Yeah.
so it's 6 year, half dozen there. Like you go to Jersey, and they're $12,000 here.
They're actually
$40,000.
dirt cheap in Philadelphia.
They're dirt
Even
cheap.
with the new assessments, which
Yeah,
is
so they get you when you buy and sell the house, but then your monthly cost is less
Okay.
with the real estate taxes. So you're looking at 4 to 6% closing costs, and we'll break that down in a second. But there's ways to reduce that. So there is two ways to reduce your out-of-pocket, and we'll really get into exact numbers in a second. But the state of Pennsylvania, through PHFA, Pennsylvania Housing and Finance Agency, offers up to 5% of the sales price of the property towards the down payment and closing costs if your household income is below about $115,000. You have to take advantage of that.
So if I'm buying a house for $300,000, what's that math?
It's about $15,000 you can
Towards the
get
cost.
towards your down payment closing costs. Really, the only caveat there is first-time home buyer and your income limit. So if
And FICO score.
and FICO score has to be 660. Good point. Yeah. Now there is another grant that's less money with a 620 credit score. So it really depends. It's why you have to talk to guys like us, and that changes all the time. The grant funds get ran out, or the credit score changes. So you know it's really good to do your pre-approval ahead of time.
And even if your credit score is lower, 580, 600, with the right advice from these guys,
We'll get you
660 can happen
Yeah.
quick, like real quick.
And you don't have to pay for a credit repair
Yeah.
person. We're going to tell you how to do that for no cost. So we'll save you $500 there. Closing costs. This is the worst conversation. of the process. So, but there's about 7 things that break up closing costs in Philadelphia or PA. Lender fees are about $1,000. Title fees, we're going to continue to use the scenario of $300,000 property. That'll be about $2,500. Interest per diem, depending on what day of the month you close, be about $1,000. Escrows, to keep it simple, in Pennsylvania, you have to put a deposit to the escrow account with the lender, and you have to reimburse the seller because they've already paid the taxes through February of the next year. It always comes out to 12 months. It doesn't matter what month you close or how you try and figure it out. It's just 12 months. Homeowners insurance at closing, you're going to pay year policy, 12 months. There's a little bit of a cushion there, but it's really just 12 months. We need to get an appraisal to get your loan approved to make sure that the sales price that you're buying the property for is actually what the property's worth. That's about $500. Philadelphia charges a 2.14% transfer tax that goes to the state. So if they ever cry poor, don't believe it, it's all bull. When you sell the house, you have to pay 2.14% too. If you go into the counties, it's only 1%. If you go over to Jersey, it's 0% transfer tax. Recording fee is about $400, and sometimes you'll pay points to get a lower interest rate. You have to pay for a home inspection. There's a real estate office fee involved. That's all your closing costs.
Which exist in September. You can actually elect to have a home inspection, which is nice.
Yeah, that is nice.
That's coming back.
Yeah.
They're back.
So roughly you need about $20,000.
So I'm gonna
Hold
jump
that-
in.
hold that thought, hold that
Yeah,
thought.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
jump in actually in a second.
So, to really get into the exact numbers, 123 Main Street, $300,000, roughly $3,500 a year in taxes, pretty close. Remember the down payment's 3% for a conventional loan, so that's $9,000. The closing cost for this property is $16,500. It's a very close estimate. So your total out of pocket is $25,500.
Insert savvy real estate agent.
Insert, right.
Now we've got a different conversation.
Right, there's 2 ways to get it back down. And the seller's assist is coming back. Would you agree?
Yeah, so
Potentially?
through the negotiation process, there's a thing called seller assistance, which no matter what, typically when you're coming to the closing table ready to buy a house, you have to show up with the 3% down payment that's required by the bank. On top of that, you have all of these other closing costs that Jeremy just talked about. But seller assistance allows for the seller to pay for a lot of those costs. There's typically a variation in how much you can ask for. If it's an FHA loan, which is going to cater to some of the lower credit scores,
Usually there's a larger seller's assist, eventuals a little bit lower.
yeah, you could ask for 6% of the purchase price. So at $300,000, that's $18,000.
Yeah.
$18,000 of those other costs, the transfer tax, the deed prep, the title insurance, can be paid for by the seller. So you're showing up with your $3,000. Now you're capped at those costs, correct? You can't exceed the closing costs because they can't hit your 3%. If that makes sense. You follow me?
Does the seller have to agree to this?
The seller has to agree to this, but
So-
we're in a different marketplace now, where guys like Ed and I, every day we log in to see what's going on. We're seeing more homes on the market, more price decreases, less homes going under contract, just because of the stigma of what's going on. That's when we swoop in as buyers to these people who are panicking, just lowered their price, and we offer them something competitive, but we bake in some seller assistance. Because if you're looking at, changing your financing by $20,000, $30,000 for the life of a loan, it's pennies in your pocket. You're not talking about much money. $20, $30, $40, $50 a month.
Right, exactly. $5,000
But
a
if-
month, and your sales price and loan amount is $20, $25 a month.
But if we're
You'd rather
talking
have
about,
5,000,
but if
right?
we're talking about, cash is king in my world. So if I have 20 grand in the bank, I feel good. If I have a grand in the bank, I'm panicking. So how can we keep more cash in your pocket?
And that's what that's the strategy call up Alex, and he finds a listing agent that Ed has, and we got a buyer, they have $10,000 to make it work. So we get a seller's assist, we build it into it. One of the good things about this market is the values from the seller's market that we're no longer in, the appraised value is higher than the sales price right now. And it's a little complicated.
Where did the grant come from? Sorry.
The
How did
grant-
how did that come to 15,000?
So remember a minute ago, Dan had mentioned it as well, we have grants through the state of Pennsylvania up to 5% of the sales price. So we can give you $15,000 towards the down payment closing.
Now that can
But
hit
there were
your
restrictions
3%.
on that?
No.
Income,
Got it.
first time home buyer. And to be honest, in Philadelphia, you don't have to be a first time home buyer because it's considered a sanctuary state. But let's just say first time home buyer and the household income limit can't be over 115,000. They
How do
don't
they
want somebody who
calculate
makes
that?
200,000.
W-2,
Tax
Yeah.
return. Yeah.
And this one your credit, right, like,
And
then the 660 FICO, yep.
660 credit score. There's another one that you can get 5,000 with a 620 credit score.
It's based off your income.
Yeah,
So-
it's based off your
and
current income.
And the way it works is like most of the time you're trying to show more income. In this case, is like you want to show less because when you're married, if you have a boyfriend, you're really in the same. It's off household income. So if yours on the mortgage and your husband's not, you're still going to use your husband's income. So it might
Yeah.
go over the total.
The household income,
Yeah.
the household is the key.
Good.
Yeah.
But even if you can't qualify for the grant, you know, we can try to get you a higher seller's assist. Just in this scenario, we could have ran 10 different scenarios for you. But you can get into this house with a $5,000 seller's assist and a grant from PHFA. Your total out of pocket is $5,000.
$5,000 to move into a house.
And your deposit's
First
gonna have
class
to be
security. It's great. It's first class security all day.
Yeah, your deposit was going to have to be, you know, 5,000 to 8,000 anyway. So when you were talking about walking out and closing with a check, if you did a $6,000 deposit, you're actually going to leave that closing with $500 in your hand. And we do those all the time, every day. So, and if you can't get the grant for some reason and you don't have 25,000, we could try to get you a $10,000 service. So then maybe you only need, you know, 15 grand. You know, so every scenario is a little different, but you don't need that much out of pocket. There's a total misconception, and that's where the creative financing comes in, with a local lender who has access to these programs helps you out.
And it all starts with a conversation. It's a scary conversation to pick up the phone and call somebody and talk finances, but when you hang up, you'll be like, whew, I feel good.
And then everything you guys are saying basically just like confirms like get going through the pre-approval process
yeah,
on
let's
what
get
that
to
is,
it.
because that's gonna get you a credit
Yep.
score, that's gonna basically give you all this outline
Yeah.
of what you need to do so you can go into your
Blueprint,
housing search
yeah.
very comfortably.
I'd love to hear some realtor feedback. Like, what would a $300,000 house rent for $3,500 a month? The total monthly payment, this is at 6%. Keep in mind, the rates have never been this high. I've been doing it for 20 years. They maybe were at around 6% 20 years ago. They're going to go back down a year and a half. So you're going to refinance. But your total payment is based on the principal and interest, which is the mortgage, real estate taxes, which in this scenario are $291 a month, homeowners insurance, and then the PMI isn't that expensive, $150 a month. So you can buy a house in Philadelphia for $300,000 or in the suburbs for $2,250 a month, $6,000 out of pocket. I'm assuming the rent is still going to be higher than that,
It's usually, I mean,
maybe about the same.
it's going to, there, I've heard of no situations since I've been doing this where someone is receiving in rent less than their mortgage payment.
Yeah.
Ever. And we lease a lot of apartments, we lease a lot of homes, we deal with a lot of, we call them the accidental landlord. You know, they bought a house and job calls, hey, you have to move to Sacramento. I'm not quite ready to sell this, let's put a tenant in it. I've never seen someone lose money because of a mortgage payment.
And
I've
keep
seen
in
some
mind,
crappy houses. But.
you get a you're going to get a $5,000 a year tax deduction. So that really lowers your payment by $400.
Yeah, and now you're showing depreciation with your accountant, and you're lowering your income taxes. So
All right,
PMI
thinking-
stops after 20%, right? Equity.
PMI goes away eventually.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that'll eventually go away.
Thinking outside the box a little bit. Square footage.
Income. So $70,000, $80,000 a year, you know, you can get a house that has a $2,200-$2,300 a month mortgage payment. If that makes sense. Yeah, next slide. So you're just see what makes up the debt to income ratio is there's really only a few things that show in the credit report. It's not what you think. Your utilities, your cell phone doesn't show up on there, gas and electric bills don't show up on there. It's basically your car, credit cards, and student loans. That's really all that shows up on the credit report. I'm going to pass it over to Dan, who's going to take you from A to Z on buying a house, how that process works, and the pre-approval process.
Cool. Everybody good? All right, so this is the important stuff right here. So the home buyer map, I'll step back here. We're just gonna walk through basically how do you even buy a home, where do you start, who do I talk to type thing. The biggest thing we hear right now is that nobody really knows how to buy a home, or what they're doing is they're outside looking at homes on the weekend. They fall in love with a home, and then they call myself, Jeremy, or Eddie, and they find out that they're not even approved for the home. And then they hate the home, and then they hate the husband, and then they don't want to buy a home anymore. Right? Everybody else sucks besides their decision, right? So what we do as a team, we put you in touch with these 5-6 people, right? So obviously you have your real estate agent. That's going to be the person who's going to find you the home, right? Not right away. There's steps before that. You have to get in touch with the real estate agent. Home inspector, this gentleman, pretty cool, right? Goes out to the home, tells you what's going on with the home which you buy. Behind the wall stuff, think like plumbing, heating. They're going to tell you what's really going on, but the seller may not tell you. Mortgage consultant, guys like us. The appraiser, that's about the value of the home. If you're buying a house for $400,000, you want to make sure the house is worth $400,000, right? Title company, so important, because if I'm buying a house off of Joe and Joe didn't pay his child support from 10 years ago, Joe probably has a child support lien on his title of the home. If I buy Joe's house, Joe's a scumbag, right?
Yeah,
if I buy Joe's house and don't get a title insurance,
follow you.
bang, right? So that's why this title company does all that behind the scenes stuff. That falls on me, right? And then a home insurance agent. You buy a home, just like you have a car, you gotta have insurance. Next one. All right, this is big. So everyone also assumes that they're just gonna find a home, they're gonna buy it. Next weekend, they're done. It typically takes, this says 3 to 6, I'm thinking more like 2 to 4. The biggest thing we all see, and it's terrible, is that they're gonna say, people fall in love with a house and then they call us. And then they're just crushed, right? It sucks. So getting started now, asking the questions now, will set you up, you and I were talking about it, will set us up for spring, summer, right? By doing the homework right now. The first thing is this, determine your budget, right? So mortgages work a different way, where we can take a look at your budget, run your credit to your income, but on paper, it's actually going to show you guys that you can actually afford more, because we go off of your gross income, right? So we don't go off of your net. We don't go off of the number that goes in your bank account every 2 weeks. So on paper, it's going to look like it's more, but that doesn't mean you have to buy the house. You have to figure out what your budget is. So typically what people say is, okay, I pay this in rent right now, I can afford X more for a mortgage. Say that number is now $2,000. That number, $2,000, will then work backwards and say, okay, $2,000, this is the price range you should be looking at, right? Because that's what fits $2,000. And you might say, shit, the house sucks. If that's all I can afford, well, then we get with the realtor and we can increase it. Or if it's too much, we decrease it. It's all based on your budget. Where if you walk into a regular bank and you say, I want to buy a house, they'll give you a pre-approval on the spot. They won't ask you any questions. So it's like that's where they go wrong on this. The pre-approval is basically going to give you the best power. If Cassandra and I are going to buy a house, she's buying a house, and I'm buying the same house, and say Cassandra with the TD Bank, and they spit out a pre-approval to her. Here you go, no questions. Versus if I went to Eddie, and he sat down and he pre-approved me, meaning he got my income, my pay stubs, W-2s. This piece of paper, when buying this house, is going to be stronger than her piece of paper. And the sellers know that. They're going to say, oh, you got this at TD?
Rocket Mortgage?
Yeah, Rocket Mortgage, they're the worst. So a qualified borrower is getting a pre-approval. And all that really does, and this is so, we just talked about this, when you find the home of your dreams, right? So you can find the home of your dreams, just make sure you have the conversation first. right? Enough looking on, Zillow, oh, look at this home, it's amazing. Home of my dreams. And you go out and see it on an open house and you can't afford it. Then you hate housing. Go ahead, guys. Simple stuff. So, things that you need. Everybody automatically assumes buying a home sucks, the process sucks, everything's terrible, it takes too long. W-2 buyer, right? Very simple. Check stubs, tax returns, assets, copy of ID, credit check. So if you're a W-2 borrower, 2 recent pay stubs, W-2s, tax returns, assets, so 2-month bank statements, and then obviously your driver's license, and then your credit check that we'll do for you. Go ahead. Now, so you have all that, right? You have all that set in place, you're good to go. Now, we figured out your budget is X. Now we get with your realtor. Your realtor is the guy that's going to find the house that you want based off of what we told you can afford and what you're happy with. They're going to do all the legwork. They're going to find out all the boxes. Oh, you want to live in that neighborhood? You don't want to live in this neighborhood? You want that many beds, that many baths? They'll filter that. And then when you find the house, you're going to make the offer.
And typically when we're working through this and working with the lender on kind of coming up with a price point, we spend 1 or 2 times together, more educational than kind of commitment, where we're feeling out what's in the price range, we're feeling out area. If it doesn't make sense, we tweak the search. But I think those are very important times before you're like fully committed into the search, is to understand what you're working with within that budget.
It's very important.
And is it best to get do it in that order, before you get the realtor, get this?
Yeah.
So that means, right, so amazing question. So go back to this example. I mean, if we had $1, this happens so much and you just feel terrible. You have to talk to a mortgage guy, right? He's going to tell you exactly, based off your conversation, what you can afford. You're going to tell him how much money you have in the bank, how much money you can pay a month. And then you're happy with it, and he's going to nail down, okay, with that information, you can afford a $250,000 house, right? So now you're good. You're straight. Your credit's been ran, your budget's been approved, and we verify how much money you have set aside, right? Boom. Now I go to, say, Alex.
Mm-hmm.
Alex, here we go. You should only be showing her $250,000 homes or less, because that's within your budget.
Yep.
So
Now,
that's you guys the first people.
Yeah.
most important.
Okay.
And there are
Just making-
there are a lot of agents real estate agents who you will call and say, hey, I'm interested in seeing this home. They'll never ask you if you've been pre-approved. They'll run out to show you the house. You'll fall in love with it. You pick up your phone to call the lender. That process doesn't take long, but it takes some time, a couple days.
Yeah.
The house sold. Now now you're pissed. And the agent stinks, and the
Yep.
process is
That's
it's
tough.
not fun to begin with.
Right.
It's a fun experience. It should be a fun experience. Stepping outside comfort zone, but it's important that your expectations are kind of guided throughout.
Yeah. It's just anything else. Like when you go to the dentist, go to a doctor, you just don't walk in and they can guess what's wrong with you. You typically go in there, hey, you think my elbows hurt and my knee hurts. You tell them how you feel first, and then they customize their solution based on what you tell them.
Yeah.
Right? This is huge. I get this do's and don'ts. So, I mean, some of this is pretty obvious. So, once you get to the point where you're approved and you've talked to us and you're good, you're looking for a home, a couple of do's, obviously, stay with your job as much as you can. Continue to pay your rent. The big thing right now is the cash, as far as down payments and deposits. You have to make sure your bank accounts are clean. If there's something that does change with your finances, if the husband loses his job or you get a raise, whatever, let us know. And then the don'ts, obviously, right? Don't quit your job. Don't co-sign for anybody. I mean, pretty much the obvious. I think the biggest thing when buying a home that we get is that when they're under contract, we get a lot of, hey, I'm buying a new house, but I need to buy a refrigerator or a couch. Can I go do that? Can I open a Best Buy card or whatever? Yeah, most times you can, but you should ask. There's ways to work around that, but we're not going to not let you buy a fridge for your new home. I think the biggest thing too, because the day we're in with the tech, move funds from account to account. So I'm getting burned on this currently with my house. So that we got Venmo, Cash App. I mean, I think everybody doesn't even carry cash anymore. Everything's transferred. So you have to worry about that because they're going to ask. So again, if you're buying a house in the spring, probably right around December, you should stop Venmoing your friends so much because you're going to buy it in the spring. right? Because they're going to ask, they're going to do large deposits.
How much is considered large with that for like general
Amazing
premise,
question.
though?
No, I got amazing question. So it's based off of your income and or your purchase price. Let me give you an example. If you're buying a house for, actually use your income. If you're making $10,000 a month, gross income, so $120 a year, they're going to ask about anything that's $5,000 to half of your gross income monthly. So anything of $5,000 or more in that account. So if you're gonna, if I bet you $5,500, you're going to ask about it. If I bet you
I'm not gonna
40
bring my friends $5,000.
Right.
No.
So there's a certain threshold. There's
Okay, that's fine.
You are, we should be friends.
Right. All right, next one. We touched on this a little bit. So obviously the inspection. So now you're think about it. Now you're under contract. You have the home. You're ready to go. Right. This is going to be my house. The realtor accepted the offer. Home inspection is going to tell you what's behind the walls. Like I said, plumbing, heating, termites, whatever the case may be. You get it, obviously, right after your offer's accepted. It runs you about $400. It's on you guys. You pay for that. The appraisal, right? You're not going to get the appraisal until the home inspection is clear. They're going to say, hey, we're straight, we're good to go. That's typically when someone's doing inspection, that's basically it's go time. We're buying this house. You're going to get an appraisal. They're going to tell you the value of the home. If you're buying it for $300,000, you want to make sure the value is $300,000. That's not ordered until you're in underwriting. Underwriting is basically considered that little time period from when you're buying a home to when you get pre-approved. Underwriting and appraisal, right. So now, think about it. So now you have the home, you're through inspection, appraisal's done, you're gold, right? Now you're in underwriting. This is where like you're dealing with like dickheads, excuse my French, like people in the back, like nerds that want to like, go through stuff, right? So they're going to pick apart everything. Again, it's why it's so important to have the team up front that's going to talk to you about it. So this underwriter, their job is to make sure that when this loan closes, that everything is intact. W-2s are right. There's no like blurry photo IDs. Everything is legit, right? The underwriter will review it. They'll say, hey, listen, we're good to go. We need X, Y, Z before you buy it. We get X, Y, Z, and then boom, we're at closing. Closing is probably the funnest part. I mean, it's definitely awesome. Closing probably takes maybe a half hour. Typically, it's done online. You can e-sign your closing documents.
Get the picture
But,
afterwards.
yeah, get the cool picture with the realtor, tag your friends type of thing. But again, it's if I could tell you anything out of this, all these slides, the most important thing is to understand is that do not waste time on Zillow or Redfin, looking at homes, grabbing your significant other to go look at homes. You have to get pre-approved. You have to talk to someone before you do it, because you're just going to get mad at yourself. We all have stories of people that I want to put a offer on this house, and you run their credit. It's like you can't get a Blockbuster card. How are you going to buy this house and wait? So things like that, you have to make sure. That's why you talk to the right people up front. Cool.
Yep.
Cool.
Now, Eddie.
And then Eddie Rockhill. So Eddie is our renovation specialist. He'll talk. I mean, some of the stuff he's got going on is pretty excellent. Go ahead.
Yeah, so hopefully everyone's still with us. So my name's Eddie Rockhill. I work with the Durkin team. So basically with the renovation loans, number one, I do all types of loans just like these gentlemen. But renovation loan is basically you're buying a house, the worst house on the street, distressed. Let's just say it was under construction and they ran out of funds. That's what a type of renovation loan is. Basically, you buy the house as is, and then we finance the costs to bring it up to the standard that you want. But the benefit that I love about doing this type of loan is you make the house the way you want. Especially when you're buying your first home. I know when I bought my first house a hot minute ago, I was like, I'm going to do this, this, and this. But let's be honest, I never had the cash on hand. The best part about doing a renovation loan is you can finance that. But the even bigger benefit, what I realize is, especially in Philadelphia, I would say if I do, 50% of my whole business is renovation loans. In the city limits, it's probably 70%. There's a lot of homes in the city to capitalize on that are distressed, or just like I said, you want in that neighborhood, but it still has that 4x4 cool pink tile from 1972.
It's coming back.
Yeah, yeah.
It's coming back.
It is, like Delta's best.
Yeah.
That tile. But no, that's what the benefit is. But besides that, the bigger thing is the equity you gain out of it. Like I have a 3-unit right now, I'm closing next week. Purchase price, $215, I believe. She's putting $80 into it, but the after improved value, when I say after improved value, the appraised value came in at $400. So it's a smart avenue, and
That's 215 plus 80, which is 295, but it's worth 400, so you made $100,000, right?
Yeah.
And that
correct. And to finance
Equity.
80, let's call it 100,000 extra in your mortgage over a 30-year term is not that much more a month.
So it's one of those things. I mean, how many times have you seen a home and you're like, wow, I love to live in this area,
Yeah, but the kitchen.
but the kitchen sucks.
Right.
Like,
You know.
but now it's like you can still buy that home and now you can just fix it up. That's what's awesome.
Right. And I've done it on my homes personally. I bought my house, did it, then I refied it, did it, and then I bought another house and I did it, and it's awesome. You know, you walk in and it's like the way you want it. And it's cheap money. The biggest thing about it is, yeah, rates are high, but if you were to try to take out a loan to do kitchen renovations, you're paying a 15% rate. But the most important thing is they use, when the appraiser goes out to appraise the house, they're having the estimate in hand, so that's what gives it the extra value as well. You know, there's a lot of benefits, and pretty much you can do everything on these renovation loans that you want.
Now what about how long do you have to pay the loan back?
Same thing, it's a one loan, 30-year term. So
Oh,
say you
okay.
buy a house for 200, you put 100 into it, you're really buying the house for quote unquote 300. That's what your down payment's based on.
Okay.
So, and it's great because even with FHA, up to a 4-unit, it's 3.5% down. I might be wrong, but county loan limits on a 4-unit is almost $1 million. But when I say that, you're only putting 3.5% down, but you have 3 other units paying for that mortgage.
Okay.
You know, that's for another first-time home buyer class, multi-units and house hacking. But no, there's again benefits, and going back to what I was saying is you can do everything and anything on these renovation loans, and I mean
We have all the people who can do it for you.
right, and they're easy.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of the biggest misconception is people think they're a lot difficult, or not really. They're not. It's just having the right people in place to execute it.
And this is people doing it for you. It doesn't
Licensed
mean,
contractors, no self-help.
It doesn't mean you're making the kitchen yourself.
Right.
No, no, you know, one of the prerequisites or requirements is that a licensed contractor, you know, they do have timelines, 6 months to complete the job. Yeah, I get it. We're rolling in the winter, things might get jammed up, delayed, but that's obviously self-explanatory.
Any flexibility on that? If you're in a pinch?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think the one I did took 1.5 years
There you
because
go.
of COVID.
It's more
You
my
know,
time.
it took me like 14 weeks to get windows.
Yeah.
So, I mean, but no, you know, good letter of explanation or just an explanation why it's getting delayed. But, you know, again, and the best thing about it, a lot as well with the renovation loan is not a lot of lenders do it. You know, cross country with the Durkin team, I'm very seasoned to do it. These guys know about them as well, and, you know, cross country does a lot of them, so it makes the process that much more easier. Because a lot of lenders say they do it, but the process is a nightmare. You know, but again, you can do pretty much anything you want. But the biggest things I see is kitchen, bathrooms. You knock down walls to make like an open floor plan, etc.
So you're telling me I can buy a house, right? Just follow me here, right? So 300,000. Use that. So I buy a house, 300 grand. I can buy that house right now. I'm gonna buy it, and then I'm gonna be like, shit, I'm living here. This kitchen sucks. Then I gotta go to get a loan from the bank, high interest rate to get the new kitchen. And the kitchen, I might get the loan, but I might just be lazy, not buying the contractor, just do it. So now you're buying this house, there's nothing there.
Right.
Versus doing the rental loan,
Right.
where you get everything right there. You do everything's basically forced upon you. The money's there, the contractors are in place. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is you can buy any house. A house that has no walls, studs only, that's what these loans are really catered to, is that type of home. Or just a home that's on 123 Main Street and you don't like the kitchen. You know, but 90% of them that maybe not 90, they call it 70, whatever, is, you know, the houses are very distressed. You know, either foreclosures, short sales, somebody went broke trying to renovate it. So that's when, you know, people can capitalize on it. You know, and right now you're going to see foreclosures coming up more and more, just for the simple fact that they happen. And people are like, oh, well, how come they didn't happen last year? Well, let's be honest, COVID, right? So everyone's mortgage payments were covered, or whatever they need, some sort of relief. So now you're slowly starting to see
Catch up.
it's starting to catch up, you know. And again, it's just another avenue, you know, another loan option that, you know, a
Do you
lot of
think
people
this
don't
loan
know
is
about.
easier to get outside of Philadelphia?
Yeah, anyway. Yep. Because you know, our team, we can do all 50 states, don't get me wrong. But predominantly, I mean, we do Jersey, PA.
Now, what about like North Carolina? Or
Yeah, we do all that state as well, you know. You know, you saw it a lot as well down the Jersey Shore, like from Hurricane Sandy from years ago. A lot of those homes that people couldn't afford or just whatever were bought up with a renovation, you know. But yeah, they're not that hard.
Cool.
That's it. Any questions?
Concerns?
Cool.
Someone's gonna have a
Is
question.
everyone
A lot of
awake?
information.
I was about to say, I've been giving y'all a lot
Information
of
overload?
questions.
Yeah, you're killing it.
You got all
Like,
that.
I've
Quiz.
been ridiculous.
Yeah, I know.
For the last 11 minutes, there's a quiz.
Yeah. So yeah.
I'm gonna fail miserably. I can't wait.
You did miss. We have to go back.
Yeah.
Stay after
Start it
class.
over.
Okay, that's fine.
No, thank you for hanging out through that.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
Back to the
Thank
Jersey
you.
Shore, right?
Thanks, guys.
Back to the Jersey Shore.
Thank you for having me.